Okay, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something pretty fascinating, and it's happening all the way over in India, specifically in the Garhwal Himalayas.
Hmm.
Now, you might already know about the Chardham Yatra. It's a pretty significant pilgrimage over there,
It is, yeah, major
and
pilgrim.
it draws tons of people every year.
Huge, yeah.
But there are some really interesting developments happening around the Yatra, something that's kind of weaving in economic empowerment with this whole spiritual journey.
Yes, very
And
interesting.
our sources detail a new initiative that's really tied to this Yatra, and it's all centered around the women of this region.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's going on?
Well, so, the Char Dham Yatra itself is this massive annual event,
Mhm.
right? I mean, tons of devotees are drawn to this incredible landscape, these incredible Himalayas.
Yeah, it's beautiful over there.
Oh, absolutely stunning. And now you have the Uttarakhand government. They're really leveraging this, this already huge platform to drive a really compelling story of economic progress and, at a very, very grassroots level.
I love that. So what exactly are we talking about here? What's the plan?
All right, so basically we're talking about the Uttarakhand government, and they're working through their Lakpati Didi scheme,
Okay.
and they're going to be setting up these 200 brand new restaurants along all the routes of this Chardham Yatra.
Wow. 200 restaurants. That's a lot of restaurants.
It is, yeah, a big project. And here's the really cool part. These aren't just any old restaurants.
Yeah.
They're going to be managed and run entirely by women from these local self-help groups.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
That's awesome. And how much money are they investing in this project?
So we're looking at about 1.5 million rupees to get these restaurants up and running, which, that's a pretty substantial commitment.
Yeah, it is. So let's talk about this Lakpati Didi scheme for a second, because I think a lot of our listeners might not be familiar with it.
Sure, yeah.
What's the idea behind it?
Okay, so the Lakpati Didi Yojana, this is a super innovative program, and it has a very straightforward goal, and that is to empower women economically and help them make a really good living.
Oh.
So we're talking about an annual income of at least 1 lakh rupees.
Okay, so they're really aiming to make sure these women can earn a good income.
Yeah, that's the goal. The name itself, like Lakpati Didi, it actually translates to woman entrepreneur with lakhs. So it really emphasizes that, that 1 lakh rupee target.
I love that. So how many women have actually been able to reach this Lakpati Didi status?
It's already been really successful.
That's awesome.
1.68 lakh women in Uttarakhand have already achieved this status.
Wow, that's amazing.
And the government, they're not stopping there. They actually have a target of reaching 2 lakh women.
That's a really ambitious goal.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And what government department is actually responsible for heading this project?
So it's the Rural Development Department, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because it aligns perfectly with all their goals of, lifting up the rural economy across the whole state.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Exactly. And we even know the name of the minister who's really pushing this forward, Ganesh Joshi. He's the Rural Development Minister.
Okay.
And he was actually the one overseeing the big review meeting where this whole restaurant plan was discussed. And from what I understand, he was urging officials to finalize those estimates quickly.
So he's really serious about getting this going.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting here is that you have this huge religious and cultural event, and it's becoming a catalyst for economic empowerment right there on the ground level.
And I think that's something our listeners will find fascinating.
Oh, for sure. It's not every day you see tradition and modern economics working hand in hand like this.
Exactly. And, we talk a lot about economic empowerment on the show, and I think this is such a fantastic example of what that can look like in practice.
Absolutely.
So let's dig a little deeper into this initiative. Why specifically focus on setting up restaurants managed by women in self-help groups along these Char Dam routes?
Okay, so the core idea here is to really boost the livelihoods of these women, right?
Mhm.
And Minister Joshi himself has said that initiatives that directly help women's self-help groups earn more money, those are top priority.
Okay.
And they're recognizing that these women are already doing great things within their self-help groups, and they have all these skills.
Right.
So giving them these more prominent opportunities, like these restaurants, right on the Yatra route, could significantly increase their income.
So it's like the government has identified this group of women who are clearly go-getters, and they're saying, okay, let's give you a platform, let's give you a stage, let's give you somewhere where you can really shine.
Yeah, exactly. And think about it. The Char Dham Yatra routes are perfect for this kind of thing.
Hmm.
You have a constant flow of people, tons of pilgrims coming through, which means a built-in customer base.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. It significantly reduces the risk that usually comes with starting a new business.
So it's smart, right? They're setting these women up for success.
Exactly.
So we're talking 200 new restaurants spread out over these routes through the Garhwal and Kumaon regions, and 1.5 million rupees invested in this. What kind of impact could we see here, both for these women and for the local economy?
Well, for the women, this is a chance to have a stable income, a good income, and to reach that Lakpati Didi status, which can change everything for them.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it, better living standards, more financial independence, a greater say in their families and communities. It's huge.
It's empowering.
Absolutely. And then when you look at the local economies, well, these restaurants are creating jobs, not just for the women running them, but for everyone else involved.
Right, the suppliers, the people who work there.
Exactly. Everyone benefits from that injection of money and activity into these areas.
Yeah, and it's not just seasonal, right?
Right, because even when the pilgrimage isn't happening, people still need to eat.
Exactly. So it has the potential to be sustainable. I think it's amazing how this initiative is thinking about the bigger picture. It's not just about helping these women earn more. It's about the ripple effect. It's about how that extra income will then flow back into their communities and create even more opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. It's a win-win situation.
So let's get back to the Lakpati Didi scheme for a moment. We've talked about the goals, the numbers involved, but I think it's important to highlight just how incredible it is that these women are already earning over 1 lakh rupees a year.
It's really inspiring.
It shows that this program is working, it's making a tangible difference in people's lives, and Minister Joshi's confidence in exceeding that 2 lakh target. I mean, it doesn't sound so far-fetched now, does it?
Not at all. And the data actually shows just how widespread this program is across the whole state.
Okay, break it down for us.
So you've got Udham Singh Nagar with over 27,000 Lakpati Didis, then Haridwar with more than 23,000, and then, substantial numbers in places like Elmore Paraditeri.
So it's not just concentrated in one area.
Exactly. It's a statewide movement. It's transforming lives all over Uttarakhand.
That's incredible. And now you're giving these women who are already successful entrepreneurs the opportunity to run a restaurant along this major pilgrimage route. I mean, the potential is huge.
Absolutely. And it's all about building on their existing success, giving them even more opportunities to thrive. Now, I know our sources also mentioned something about promoting local products along these yatra routes. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so Minister Joshi was really clear about how important it is to have more outlets specifically dedicated to selling local products.
Okay.
And he even said they need to speed up the opening of the remaining 96 outlets under the traditional agriculture development scheme. So clearly this is a priority.
That's a good sign. And he mentioned something about a meeting with agriculture department officials, right?
Yeah, a joint meeting, which suggests they're really trying to coordinate all of this.
So they're thinking about the whole picture.
Exactly. It's not just about the restaurants. It's about creating a whole ecosystem where local farmers, artisans, producers, everyone can benefit.
Yes.
So you've got pilgrims coming in looking for unique souvenirs and authentic experiences.
Exactly.
And then you've got these outlets showcasing all the best local products.
And everybody wins.
It's a brilliant strategy.
It really is.
So let's talk about the impact on the Chardam Yatra itself. How do you think these restaurants run by local women will change or maybe even enhance the experience for pilgrims?
I think it could be really positive for pilgrims in a few ways.
Okay.
First, you have the food itself. They'll have more options, maybe even some authentic local dishes that they wouldn't find anywhere else.
That's a good point.
And maybe some healthier home-cooked meals as well.
Yeah, that's always a plus.
And second, the fact that these restaurants are run by these local women's self-help groups, it adds a whole other dimension to the experience.
Right.
It's more personal, more connected to the community.
Like you're not just a tourist, you're a guest.
Exactly. And that can make a huge difference.
And these women are experts on the region. They know the terrain. They know the challenges.
Exactly. So when it comes to setting up and running these restaurants in a place that can be quite challenging, logistically,
Right.
their local knowledge is invaluable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that the Uttarakhand government is really putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to supporting these women's self-help groups.
Absolutely.
And this initiative with the restaurants, it's a huge step in the right direction. It's showing a real commitment to economic empowerment at the grassroots level.
And they're doing it in a way that's smart and sustainable.
Exactly. They're not just throwing money at the problem. They're creating a system where everyone benefits.
It's all connected. the pilgrimage, the local economy, the empowerment of women. It's a really holistic approach.
I couldn't agree more.
So for our listeners, I want you to think about this. What are some other ways we can use big events like this to help local communities? We've talked about religious pilgrimages, but what about sporting events, festivals?
Yeah. Or even conferences.
Exactly. How can we make sure that these events are not just good for the economy as a whole, but also good for the people who live in these areas?
It's an important question, and I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive. I hope it's given you some food for thought,
My pleasure.
and we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.